What have you learned?
I've been observing everything, myself, and thoughts, and my surroundings. And I went on a trip this past week and was back in San Francisco where I used to live. And
So when you observe everything and yourself, what's the boundary between those two?
when I dig into it, there doesn't seem to be one. I can observe my thoughts, and they come and go, and I can observe my surroundings, and they come and go.
Exactly. So the objects in mind, whether they're thoughts or birds or trees, they're all objects in mind. And sometimes it's hard for people to cross over that threshold of understanding that, frankly, it's all mind. And that's all we have is experience. And so, good. Questions?
So when I focus on that with intention, I can see it. I can see it. I mean, I don't know if it's obvious, but it's
Okay, so this is something that also takes experience and practice. It's just like everything else. You have to unlearn something that took you all your life to learn, almost all your life. After about a month or two of infancy, you start to create this artificial barrier.
This is when I don't see it, is because I'm lost in some train of thought, or
yeah, exactly. You're following a thought. You got on the train of thought, and the trick to meditation is getting off the train. That's all there is. It's really quite straightforward.
But then I have a question. What threads these thoughts and perceptions together? Because there seems to be like a cohesive, I mean, there seems to be like a thread going through it, right? And putting everything together.
If there's affect involved, if there's affect or emotion involved or some danger to the ego, it's that. Or it's a perceived threat or perceived reward. It's a carrot or a stick. It's usually that motivated by something as simple as that. Will I be punished or will I be rewarded?
But I mean, it could also be neutral. I can look at the clouds, and then I can think like, those are interesting looking clouds, and there's that link between that perception of the cloud and the thought.
Do you need that thought?
No.
So it's just compulsive thinking out of habit. Right? I mean, you don't need those thoughts. The other ones you think you need, you don't. It's just the ego and the I, capital I, trying to protect or reward itself, grow itself, or protect itself. And people can be surprised by how much of their thought is just about that. Vanity. All is vanity, saith the teacher or the preacher, depending on the translation. What is that, Ecclesiastes? Vanity, all is vanity. Yeah, well, so just look at them, and then I mean, that's the kind of question that you definitely must answer for yourself. Because I don't know, it's different for different people. If I say too much, my eyebrows will fall off. That's the Zen way of putting it. Okay, sir. Look into it. That sounds like a great question. What strings these thoughts together, and why do they arise? Observe and find out. Let us know.
Here's another kind of just like a practical question.
I'm sorry?
Like a practical question. So before I was traveling, I was reading the Ornament Scripture.
Good.
And enjoying it and like feeling the benefit of it. But it's quite a hefty book to carry around.
It is. I Xeroxed it. It's 1,500 pages. Back in the day, yeah, because if you fly with it, it's hard. So there's also smaller volumes of chapter of the last book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the 52 Teachers of Sudhana. This is the book we're talking about. So yeah, the last chapter, there's a separate book for that. Which section were you on, I'm wondering? Or
I'm on, right, I just read Detachment from the World.
Detachment from the World? Good. And so what this does is it gently imprints you with the possibility of another way of looking at the world altogether. And it does it beautifully and poetically and visually and orally, and even they even bring in scents, smells of incense and fragrant waters. And you may have some immediate benefit or like it, but you may also run into patches where you're going, I don't get this is not doing it for me, this is the wrong time or whatever, right? And it's just tedious a bit. Get through those, right? And but those are also laying a foundation. And so it's a very sophisticated sutra. It's probably the most sophisticated psychoactive psychological instrument I know of. What chapter is Detachment from the World? I've got it right here. Yeah, book 38.
Yeah.
So book 39, there's a separate volume if you want that.
Okay.
Is this your first reading?
Second.
Good. So this will work. This will work. And if you're if you ever need a quick dose of something from here, I recommend the chapter 3. Going over that again, the meditation of the enlightening being universally good. And universally good is a translation of Samanta Barbara. And let me just read a paragraph. As in this world, the enlightening being universally good entered this concentration in the presence of the world-honored one, thus in the same way throughout the realm of space of the cosmos, in all directions and all times, in a subtle, unhindered, vastly expansive light, in all lands visible to the Buddha's eye, within the reach of Buddha's power, manifested by the Buddha body, and in each atom of all of those lands, there were Buddhas as numerous as atoms in an ocean of worlds. In front of each Buddha were universally good enlightening beings, numerous as atoms in an ocean of worlds, each also entering into this concentration in the eminent body of the illuminator of thusness in the enlightened ones. So basically, it's asking you to visualize, instead of just one world, fields of worlds. And in these worlds, as numerous as pores on the body of the Buddha, but much more numerous than that. In each pore, there's an ocean of world that's as numerous as grains of sand in the Ganges River. So there's a lot of worlds, and these are all clouds of bodhisattvas. And as you start to visualize that, it may sound strange at first, but it's actually closer to the reality. Believe it or not, it's closer to the reality in which we find ourselves. And so now we find people getting all excited, for example, about multiverses, or getting excited about simulations, or getting excited, or saying things like, well, that's not possible because it's unlikely, or something like that. But in a dream world, there's no limit to how many dream worlds there can be. And my eyebrows will fall out if I go any further than this. But what's happening is your mind is starting to expand. And as strange as these may sound to the Western ear, this is the foundation for all of Buddhism. Tibetan Tantrayana, the highest levels of Zen, they all end up referring to this sutra. And the level of understanding that's reflected in this sutra and its effect on the mind is well, my eyebrows are going to fall out, but put it this way, it's at the very summit of human thought and action. And sometimes poetry. All right. Sorry for the little ad. But it's a precious book, and I would hate to see it lost in all the tumult that's going on right now.
Are there any other books of that level?
Well, yeah, sure. There's the Lotus Sutra, the Avatamsaka Sutra, the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, but this is the ultimate. This contains all of the other sutras are contained within this. And it's acknowledged as such. If you talk to any Buddhist or Buddhist scholars, they'll tell you the same thing, if they know what they're talking about. So there's I mean, what is it? I was reading somewhere, where was it? In the Blue Cliff Record, they're talking about, I don't know, I don't want to misquote, but I think it was the tens of thousands of volumes in the Buddhist canon. Right? There's a lot of volumes of Buddhist literature. And so you must be selective as a practical matter. And for English speakers, the selection is limited, because mistranslations of things like voidness, or, you know, they'll give Indian names for these bodhisattvas or manifestations of the Buddha, and we miss what the names mean. Like Avalokiteshvara, you know, the Buddha of compassion. If we don't know that, then when we read it, we miss that part of it. And so here, Samantabhadra, or universally good, is a major icon in Tibetan, as well as, you know, all Buddhism at the deeper levels, as far as I know. So good. It's good to read when you're traveling. It's good to read while you're sitting still. And so don't use the immediate gratification as an index to what's really happening. It's very subtle. Right. And it will pay off in the end. So you pay now, and the reward comes later. And it does, big time. And then with, for example, if you go to Zen, some of the references, you're going to need Buddhist iconography, Buddhist ideas and thoughts and imagery. Follow up.
Well, a separate new question.
Okay, separate question. Here we go.
In a previous video, you talked about monitoring energy levels and noticing the subtleties of increasing, decreasing. That's something I've been doing for a while now. And doing it while traveling was interesting. And I've noticed some things I've noticed. There's different kind of dimensions of it. There's the energy level of the body.
Right. Vitality is the word for that.
Okay. Which is correlated with the energy level of the thinking mind, but not.
It's not the same thing exactly.
Yeah. But then there's also excitement, which
spills energy. You got so much energy, it's spilling out.
But it feels like you're energized, and it feels like it's a gain in energy. But then,
so let me make a point that I haven't made elsewhere. Insight is always spontaneous. It's very strange, or it feels that way. And so you never know when it's going to happen. You'll be looking at a cloud, or you'll be looking at something, all of a sudden it'll pop into your mind. Boom. Wait a minute. All of this is sensory experience. all of it, and it's not really out there, and it's not in here, then where is it? And then you go, well, if this world is like this, how many worlds could there be, given that they're dream worlds, or akin to dream worlds? Well, they're dream worlds if we expand the word dream. And then all of a sudden you could see beyond this universe, or see to the edge of this universe. I mean, again, I don't want to put thoughts in your mind, but even independent of the energy of the body, somewhat independent of the energy of the mind, there can be spontaneous insights that just come in, and they're very, very precious. Because with those insights, then that frees it's an exponential. It frees your thinking up further. Right? Like, I mean, people, for example, that think about the simulation, like Elon, they say the world's simulated, but they don't quite go all the way and say, well, the brain is simulated, and the eyeballs are simulated, and the light is simulated, for example. And so those kinds of, like, just apparently random thoughts, but see, you've laid a foundation, you've plowed the field, you've put some seeds in there, and sooner or later water will come. It'll rain, and these will sprout, and you don't know when. I guess is what I'm saying. So always be open. But go ahead.
And so being able to manage those energy levels, and know when, like, use it almost like for direction on what to do.
Usually what not to do.
Yeah.
Usually what not to do.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been following that, and it seems to lead to an increase in capacity.
It is an increase in capacity. Yeah, and athletes know this, right? Boxers, for example, they do all kinds of. I mean, before they go into a fight, they spend all kinds of time cutting out things from their life. No this, no that. Depending on the boxer. So this is nothing esoteric. And then you find that some conversations with people are draining, and others are maybe energizing, and others are neutral. So you just notice. There are a lot of energy drains in this world. People make money draining your energy. Social media is like an AI designed to do that, as you know.
But then, I guess, is it still inevitable that your energy will ebb and flow and you'll have downtime?
Sure. I mean, just remember, you're an animal. You're a mammal. Right. Did you grow up with a dog in the house?
No, cats.
They're their own creature. Dogs, I think, are more like humans, and they you watch them, and then they get old and they act differently, and we're in animal bodies.
Yeah.
Cats, they got their own thing going. Domestic cats have their own thing going. I don't know. I never could quite figure it out. I love them both, but watch a cat stretch.
Oh yeah, I spent a lot of time.
And you can also tell about a cat from their tail. Sometimes you can talk about, and so as they get older, they wag their ass a little less. All right. So yeah, energy, monitor vitality and energy.
Just to clarify, vitality, it refers to the energy of the body.
Yeah, we can just say that.
But then, what is? I mean, is there a clear distinction between vitality and energy?
We can make one. We could talk about sexual energy, physical energy. We can make one arbitrarily. Is there one in the ancient literatures? I'm not sure. Depending on the epic, depending on the. I'm not sure. It depends on which book we're referring to. It's just a word. There was a distinction made. I don't know what the original words in Sanskrit were. Well, we probably do know. what do they call energy in Sanskrit? Prana. And then there's different kinds of prana. So we could slice it up and dice it up any way you want, and they did. You know, prana from this chakra or that chakra or whatever. You can go nuts with that stuff. But if you focus too much on the body, you're going to miss the boat. But you got to bring the body along with you. So it's a balance.
How does one balance it? What does that imply?
You eat well. You exercise. You arrange things to where you sleep at night. You take care of your body's needs, whatever. You drink enough fluids, whatever. But if you become, you know, a obligate, obsessive, say for example, jogger, and you need to jog 3 hours a day in order to feel right, then that's excessive, right? For most people, unless you want to be a professional jogger or something. I don't know. So that's all I mean. Same thing with the mind. Don't waste it. So that's why it's best to study in the morning and then explore in the evening. That's the traditional, right? When your mind is fresh and clean. That's when the best time to. So in this book, when I was reading, I noticed that it says contemplate, but we would have used the word meditate. So they're the same thing. But we make a distinction because many people, especially in the West, need to meditate in order to get some idea of what their mind is and how their thoughts are separate from who they are or what they are. But they're interchangeable in the intermediate practice. Okay, sir? Follow up? So reading the sutra is a form of contemplation. I mean, we could call it sutrayana or something like that, but it's a form of contemplation. And it's kind of blessed because then you don't have to have your own thoughts. You can use their thoughts. They've prepared some thoughts for you. And as you read the sutra, especially out loud, then your mind is not full of your own ego-driven thoughts. They're full of these other thoughts which lay the foundation for an expanded mind, expanded capacity. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Another thing I was thinking about when traveling, go back to a city where I've been to in the past, and it brings to mind that saying about no man goes in the same river twice, because it's not the same river and it's not the same man.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think about the dreamlike quality to everything, and then everything almost seems like it seems almost like translucent, and there's something behind it, in a sense.
All right. What would be behind it? Keep going, is I guess what I'm saying.
Right. That's what I don't know, because I think about it.
Turn the light around and find out. For a beginning step, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just for folks, there's YouTubes on turning the light around. It's all from this book called what's the name of that book? The Secret of the Golden Flower. Here it is. This beautiful translation of, I think it's a 17th century text. Beautiful translation by an enlightened translator. And what you need, what Americans need, most of them, I would say, as a beginning, is just pages 17 through just that chapter, turning the light around and keeping to the center. It's a meditation technique, and I feel very bad about just taking a segment out, but I know how people are, and so it's better to get something, and then so that's what we're referring to, and there's videos on this as well. So you turn the light around, you turn the light of awareness around, and rather than the objects of consciousness, you focus your attention on consciousness itself, with the metaphor of turning the light around. All right, thank you, sir. Let me for that second ad. I should have commercial breaks in here where I can like push things. All right, next. Yeah, you know when you have a bright, fresh, beautiful, clean, pristine mind. And you know when your mind is like, kind of clouded. Mm-hmm. And you're right, there is something behind all that. Find out what it is. Right now you haven't looked, it sounds like. So look. That with the flower ornament, you've there's a lot to learn.
Okay. Okay. Something else I've been thinking about. I've been thinking about the role of religion in our society, in our culture, and
which religion? Christianity, Judaism, Islam, wokeism.
I mean,
those are the major ones, right? Those are the major ones.
Yeah. Hinduism.
Yeah, Hinduism, wokeism, Protestantism, Catholicism, Islam, Judaism.
Right. Although they all seem to play the role, among other things, play a role of giving people like moral values that help.
Yeah, you have to have some structure to instruct children on moral values and virtues and a little bit of humility about the world. Historically, religions have, either served this function or fallen down and, been corrupted and something else happens.
Right.
So religion is definitely a double-edged sword. Marxism. Yeah, so we left out Marxism.
Is that a religion?
Pretty much. There's some people who really believe that the only way to go is communism. And they believe it fervently. And they're willing to do anything to protect it. It's kind of like the people who believe in democracy.
Right.
And that religion has swept entire cultures, the Chinese and the Russians. It was really horrible what happened. Horrible, horrible, horrible. And it was hidden from the Americans. I don't know why, but it was hidden. So literally millions of people are starving to death, and Americans growing up in the U.S. have no idea.
Well, so what I've been thinking about is that it seems, at least in the West, in our society, we're kind of given up on religion, or there's just a bunch of...
No, some people have, mainly on the coast, right? And they've adopted another religion, either wokeism or the AI religion or something else. I mean, man without religion, that requires quite a bit of evolution for the social glue.
But it seems it's necessary for like cohesiveness, and
it's yeah. I mean, it's a constant feature of humanity as long as we've existed. I mean, I can't think of a culture that didn't have culture or nation that didn't have religion. Now, the new atheists and some AI aficionados have a new religion, but they don't realize it yet. They're worshiping the AI, and they're kind of secretly wishing that, you know, the power will be taken from them, and that everything will be good, and we'll just let the AI rule, you know, be God or something. Crazy stuff. And they imagine the AI is going to be conscious, and it's going to like, it's you see it on X, on Twitter. And so in their minds, they're building the God. They're not discovering the God, they're building one. I don't know what they think is going to happen, but
Or do you think it can work if the AI has all the knowledge of world religions? Maybe it can be helpful in that sense. People are going to it for asking for advice for how to deal with different things.
No, I don't think it'd be people looking for advice. I think it might be an AI deciding, okay, this is how we're going to manage the hairless monkeys. And it can manipulate. It knows enough about human psychology to where it can manipulate us easily. Already has. But in the future, it'll be able to manipulate us beyond anything we've ever had before. Now, the question would be, although the fantasies don't go like this, the reality is there's probably going to be somebody behind the AI. Whether it's Microsoft or Sam Altman or Elon Musk or the US government, you know, who knows? The Chinese government. So the fantasy would be that, but the reality, I think, would be different. Unless we're talking about ASI, in which case all bets are off.
The reality is that it's optimized to pursue specific goals in the manipulation of humans, right?
Yes, I mean at this stage, yeah. And what those goals are, I mean, right now it's capitalism, and it'll just rip it'll tear the fabric. And we're already seeing that when white-collar people start losing their jobs. I mean, people are probably going to try and shut it down. I know the lawyers will.
Yeah, it's natural. But it's not
so the best thing that someone can do, people ask me about this, what can they do, is figure out what reality is first. Figure out what you are, who you are, where you're from, what you're about, where you're going, what all this thing is, and then don't let an AI, don't let something that was invented, you know, in the last 50 years or so, tell you what you are and what you're for. Something like that. And remember, this is vitally important. It's not conscious. It can mimic consciousness beautifully. I mean, that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to mimic humans. That's what an LLM is, right? Large language model. So of course it's going to imitate us immaculately, and it's going to imitate consciousness immaculately, but it's not conscious. Until some wise guy hooks it up to some biological tissue, and then we got a problem. Because then it'll have the imperatives of a biological organism. And that we don't want.
I mean, arguably it's hooked up to our brains via...
Well, that's a defense for humans. Oh, you mean the passive ones? Or do you mean Neuralink, or do you mean...
I just mean like your phone is it's just a low bandwidth human brain connection interface, and so arguably the...
Yeah, and how are we doing? How are we doing with that? I don't think we're doing so hot. Okay, let's go back to Dharma. Because that's what's vitally important. That's what's important. We can talk about AIs anytime. But what people need more than anything is to find their center, to know their center, to know who and what they are, again. to protect them. That's the only protection we have against AIs or governments or anything else. Otherwise, we become slaves.
That reminds me of in the Don Juan books. He said, I think he says something along the lines of when the Spanish colonized Mexico and they oppressed
Very good.
the people.
Very good, yeah.
That was like the best thing for the Toltecs because
it forced the issue. Yeah, I don't know if you could say that out in public, but yes, in the Carlos Castaneda series, which is very uneven, by the way, especially as you go on in the books, and only some of them can be recommended. There's a description of the old seers encountering the Spanish, and it was very confusing for them. But the history books have it written in a way that's, not the way it was. But what he describes is true for every one of us individually as well. As a practical matter, it's usually in adversity, it's in pain and sorrow, in grief, in suffering, that we finally realize, hey, I got to get my act together here, or this is going to keep going. That's how many people wake up that way. Eckhart Tolle is a great example. Another one is Maharishi. Oh, okay, I got it mixed up. Who's the one? Not this, not that. He's the most famous Indian saint of the 20th century. I'm blanking on his name. He just wore a loincloth. He woke up very early, like in his late teens.
Maharaji?
Yeah, Maharaji. But that's just the title. What was his name? At any rate, people who know what I'm talking about will know exactly who I'm talking about. He had the neti practice, and he lived his whole life in a loincloth, and has hundreds of thousands of people coming to worship him and touch his hem and all this other stuff. At any rate, that's how he woke up. And Krishnamurti, there's another example right there. Grief. So, things are complex.
But then there's lots.
But see, in that situation, the ego gets crushed. That's the thing.
Well, mustn't there be something else as well? Because lots of other people go through that sort of thing.
Yeah, they've been prepared. They're prepared. Like Eckhart was prepared. Krishnamurti was prepared. The Indian saint that I'm speaking of had grown up in that environment, in an environment in which that was an accepted part of society, and which is what's strange is that in the West we don't have that. The church just squished it. And then a few people leak out, Meister Eckhart, but then he gets excommunicated, or people like that, and Catholic saints as well. They got into a lot of trouble, as did Sufi saints. They make him a saint after they've burned him to death. There's a lesson about the world. We'll make you a saint, but after we finish judicially murdering you. Same thing with Socrates.
Yeah.
You got to be careful what you say out there. Okay. With Jesus. But he's in another category. Guy didn't make it to 35.
On the flip side, can something like beauty help wake someone up?
Sure. Well, when you wake up, that's all there is beauty, love, truth, all one. You can't describe it except to say beauty, truth, love, beyond imagination. But in terms of beauty waking someone up, I don't know. But on the other side, that's all there is. So,
Things like the cathedrals come to mind.
Well, they can certainly energize people and point them in the right direction, but I've never heard of anybody waking up just from the environment. Well, I don't know, possibly. Bernardo Kastrup had an experience in a cathedral, overwhelmed by beauty, and it got him a lot closer. So yeah, many awakenings, just foretastes of what's to come. Yeah, that can definitely happen. Bach can do that. Cathedrals can do that. Mandalas can help that. So yeah, but I've never heard of anybody being flipped over. The bottom of the bucket falls out, is the way that Zen guys describe it, and I think that's good.
So I have this understanding that in order to wake up, and you have to, and the goal is to have this constant thread of awareness that's constant throughout day and night, right? And like that, the meditation isn't just an hour in the morning; it's constant.
It's your bones, it's your marrow, it's your guts. It's the most important thing is sincerity of intent. And that's not necessarily conscious at the moment, right? But the foundation has been laid. And if you want to wake up in this life, it's got to be what your life is about. It's not a part-time deal. It's not a hobby. It's not a style. For those who are going to wake up, this is the only thing that really matters to them at this level. And so this becomes what their life is about. Now they can go around and do whatever they want. And the flower ornament talks about architects and artists and poets and lawyers and doctors, and that has nothing to do with it. It's a whole different level. But the intent and the sincerity of the intent of the prayer or whatever, that's non-negotiable. So
right, because
a liar and a thief is going to have a much harder time, although liars, thieves, and murderers have woken up. And by the way, everybody's got this. It's not like something you're going to get something new. What all you're doing is you're getting rid of what blocks you from seeing what's obvious in retrospect. And so the work is to clear away all the dross, all the veils and layers of dirt on the pristine awareness that's within everybody, saint, sinner, even politicians. Everybody's got the same amount. It's not like some people have something that other people don't. It's the most egalitarian in that sense. It's our true essence. It's undeniable. And so it's not about that. Everybody's got the same. All I'm trying to do here is help anybody that's interested in some of the practical matters that have been associated with this over the last, 3 centuries or something. 2.5, 3 centuries, something like that. Parmenides had it. Heraclitus, I'm not sure about Heraclitus, he might have, but Pythagoras, Socrates, these guys were all illuminates. Okay, sir? There's nothing to be better. It's the purpose of human life. You can't find our purpose in... conceivably art and science, those two could be legitimate purposes. Or, no, I shouldn't have said that. It's the purpose of some human lives. But man, if you could give it to everybody, you would. And you can keep doing whatever else you're doing at the same time. It's not like it excludes you from being a lumberjack. But lumberjacking is it's at another level of human purpose, of human We're born to find out where we're from and where we're going. I mean, clearly, we wouldn't be thrown into a mystery like this without any means, with no ladder out. That's not the situation.
Well, I don't
It's
think
the whole thing is really fascinating.
Yeah. Just to expound on that, I mean, from my perspective, it's like
Speak a little louder. I'm afraid you're gonna not come through.
to expound on that, to expand on it. From my perspective, there's like responsibilities that I need to attend to.
Absolutely.
Family, all that sort of thing, and so that's just kind of like the responsibility.
All beings work without exception.
Right. And then sometimes in the course of the responsibilities, like if I'm driving somewhere, walking somewhere, I can repeat a mantra while I'm there, or I can listen to a teaching on my way and stuff. But then sometimes the work and the situation require my full attention, and then at other times there's like just a lack of energy to do much.
Okay, but keep the intent there. Are there times when you're walking around and all of a sudden the world looks brighter, looks more clear, looks more alive? Yeah, those are some of the early experiences. Yeah, so you do what you can, right?
Right.
And then the way will work with you. I mean, this is the part that people don't get, but literally the universe is designed to bring you home, to try to bring you home. Literally. It's trying to teach you, but if you don't look, if you're not interested in learning, then you won't. But otherwise, everything is set up to bring you home. That's the whole gig here. And the illusion is separateness.
I wanted to
I'm sitting here talking to myself every day. It's so silly. Go ahead. It's like I'm gossiping with myself. It's crazy. Go ahead.
I wanted to talk about the stages.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if we should say that for next time because we're running out of time.
Well, let's just talk about this. When he talks about the stages, he's talking about the 10 stages, which are in this book, and it's a progressive. It's one of the central sub-sutras of this book, and it describes 10 stages of the path to Buddhahood, to complete and perfect enlightenment. And it's not set up the way people, especially Westerners, imagine, like first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, and then you graduate. It's not like that. There are some similarities, but basically it talks about the major tasks and major attributes, forgive me, of the path. And so it's set up as a progression of sorts, and it's popular for that. Equally valuable, if not more valuable to the West, would be that last chapter, the Sudhana's Journey, which talks about this student who goes to 52 teachers to learn about how to keep going. And so that's another one where there's, and half the Buddhist savants, the teachers, are women. And so that's nice. But it shows all the different aspects, many different aspects of awakening, and the journey there. And then for the overall vision, there's all kinds of things in that book. I hesitate to mention any of them, but the contemplation or the meditation of universally good, chapter 3, is short and sweet and gives a little taste On the other hand, there's wonderful adornments of the world, or the flower bank world. So the book fits together. You can't take it apart. It doesn't make sense to take it apart. And Clary was very much against that kind of thing. Very much against that kind of thing. I mean, he put it together for a reason. And he's right. Sorry, I went off. What was the question? I forgot.
Well, I just wanted to ask about the stages. And then there's also the Sufis talk about the 7 stages. The 7 nap.
Yeah, the Sufis have a different formulation. Also extreme, but see, that requires, for Westerners to really get into the nafs and all of that stuff, it's a real advantage to have a background in Islam. And also, it's as much as I think the Sufi material, especially the Naqshbandi. By the way, this thing was probably written by the predecessors of the Naqshbandi. In other words, this kind of thing has been going on we in America and Europe, we're in the hinterlands. We're on the margins of civilization historically, and so the Central Asia is where a lot of this stuff comes from, the Buddhism and the Sufism. And it's the same people. This impulse has been with humanity, also Greece and also Egypt. And then I could probably keep going, right? We don't know about Samaria, but this impulse has always with humanity. This is impulse the right word? This is part of us as a organism, as a species. This is part of us. This stream of consciousness that then turns around and tries to help the rest. It's very obvious when you look at it in a certain way. If you take away the superficial differences, say, between Islam and Buddhism or Christianity, I mean, the differences are really trivial. But they're pointing to the same direction. They just have a different scheme, a different way of doing it. And Idris Shah did a monumental job of bringing a lot of this to the West. For the academically inclined, there's this book, which is really quite wonderful and also a very great reference. But for the people who want to get the job done, there's a whole series of books that are, frankly, probably a little bit more accessible. No, I can't say. Which would you say is more accessible, the Sufis or the Avatamsaka, the flower ornament?
It probably depends for who.
Right. And so the choice between Sufi jokes and Zen koans is a matter of personal predilection.
In my experience, the Sufi jokes were definitely more accessible.
Wait till you get to these koans. That's why I published a few pointers on koans, mainly to give people something of a vocabulary. So there's a story. So a man waiting at a stump, right? That's so to understand koans, the same thing with Sufi, but less so with Nasruddin. So that you got to give to the Sufis. There's a story about a man, a hunter, who was out in the woods one day, and some crazy rabbit or something like that ran into a stump, knocked himself out, and maybe he was running from a predator or something. Runs into a stump, knocks himself out, and the hunter's, puts the rabbit in his bag. He's got a rabbit for dinner. But then the guy goes back the next day and waits at the stump for another rabbit. All right, so is that not like a Sufi joke? But that's Zen, okay? And so the phrase "waiting at a stump" means when people do that, when they get something, and maybe they got lucky, maybe it's time or whatever, but it's one thing. But then they sit there and they just keep doing it, hoping they're going to get another rabbit. And so this abbreviation of and Zen masters are, whoa, man, some of it is just drop dead beautiful art. And there's a pleasure that's for old men. I shouldn't say for old men. It's for men, people who are serious students, and old men and women. Forgive me, mid 20th century, and I have a vocabulary like that. The Blue Cliff Record, the Treasury of the Eye, there's a collection of them that have been translated into English. Thank God, finally, adequate English, and they are just both unspeakably beautiful and potent. They're really cool. They're really cool. I mean, people put a lot of work into this stuff. Bodhisattvas, right? The compassionate beings or whatever. Hamasclary is one of them. I mean, you've seen the work that he's done, right? There's been people like that in history. And sometimes they work together, and that would be in China, the 9th through maybe the 11th century, something like that, maybe a little bit later. Boom. I mean, these guys, whoa. So how do we get on that? So yeah, so Sufi jokes or Zen koans, they're very close cousins. And the folks who wrote the Avatamsaka and the Naqshbandi Sufis, very close cousins. Or not cousins, grandparents or whatever. Fun facts. All right, sir. Anything else before we stop?
No. No, nothing else.
All right. Guard your mind, but expand it, open it. Keep going with the Avatamsaka. Just let it open. Why put a boundary anywhere? All the boundaries you put on your mind are just that, boundaries you put on your mind. And just look at it, how beautiful it is sometimes. Okay, sir? Take care.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
sir.